And Foreign's father has helped incarcerate countless Black people in part of the war on drugs. I don't want to hear pain at scale when his college education was paid for through the systematic oppression of the Black community. And let's go into that. I want to explain to you all the war on drugs first, because a lot of people may not be aware. In the 1960s, medicinal and recreational drug use in the United States started to become a major security issue. This is from civilrights.org. A rise in the countercultural movement for recreational drug use led to fears of a drug epidemic. Despite surveys finding drug consumption was relatively rare, a 1969 Gallup poll found that 48% of respondents believed drug use was a serious problem in their communities. But the same survey revealed only 4% of American adults had tried cannabis. Richard Nixon exploited these fears among socially conservative voters and, as a result, was elected president in 1968. His policies capitalized on public concern about high rates of drug use among American troops returning from Vietnam. Heroin use in particular was prominent. As a result, in 1970, Congress passed the Controlled Substances Act, which created 5 schedules within which to regulate different drugs based primarily on risk of addiction. The following year, in June 1971, Nixon officially declared a war on drugs, telling Congress that drug addiction had become a national emergency and that drug abuse was now public enemy number 1. Following this announcement, drug use officially became a criminal issue, and Nixon proposed strict measures. This is important context to add. Report: Aid says Nixon's war on drugs targeted Black people and hippies. One of Richard Nixon's top advisors and a key figure in the Watergate scandal said the war on drugs was created as a political tool to fight Blacks and hippies, according to a 22-year-old interview recently published in Harper's Magazine. The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had 2 enemies: the anti-war left and Black people. Former Nixon domestic policy chief John Ehrlichman told Harper's writer Dan Baum for the April cover story published Tuesday, "You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or Black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and Blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did." So this is a chart. Graph. Incarcerated Americans 1920 to 2008. In 1971, right here, is when the war on drugs started. 1984 is the Sentencing Reform Act. You can see that this was the start of the intensification of the prison industrial complex. The source is the Justice Policy Institute, and the report was The Punishing Decade and U.S. Bureau of Justice Statistics. This is where Foreign's dad comes in. And again, I don't want to hear a single fucking word about drug addiction and pain at scale against minorities when Foreign has never atoned for the lives his dad has destroyed. He doesn't get to talk shit about me. The worst I did was some cringe noodle tweets. The worst that he did was go to college on blood money of destroyed lives of separated families. People who are still in jail today as a result of his father. This is from the Bahamas Information Services. A heartfelt send-off for Foreign Affairs Permanent Secretary Peter DeVoe Isaacs. The date, February 16th, 2022. Now, I've already went over how Foreign has lied about being a foreigner. He's an American-born citizen. He's more American than I am. But the important part to highlight here, at the embassy in Washington, D.C., He served as a political officer and participated in the country's drug certification efforts. What do drug certification efforts mean? This is a document from the US Department of Justice around the same time that he was serving as a political officer doing drug certification efforts. Executive summary, purpose. Anti-drug efforts in the Bahamas play a vital role in the U.S. war on drugs because the Bahamas occupy a strategic location between the United States and drug-producing countries. According to the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Bahamas is one of the principal smuggling routes for drugs shipped from Latin America and the Caribbean to the United States. Result in brief, U.S. anti-drug efforts in the Bahamas have evolved from a relatively simple and inexpensive activity to one involving 5 federal agencies and many activities. U.S. agencies spent about $76 million over the last 3 years in support of the anti-drug effort in the Bahamas. So, continuing with that, Peter DeVoe Isaacs Sr., Foreign's father, returned to the Bahamas after Foreign Man in a Foreign Land was born in January 1996, and then took up the appointment in the Ministry of Public Safety and Immigration, where he continued his assignment in narcotics control. He understudied internationally acclaimed narcotics expert Jack Cusack. Who is Jack Cusack? Well, according to the DEA Museum Lecture Series, Jack Cusack was the regional director of the Board of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, and the Drug Enforcement Agency in Paris. Further than that, he served in 1971 as the chief regional officer of the Drug Enforcement Agency for all of Europe. Now, all of this stuff, this is quite a lot. I don't even think that this is going to hurt Foreign. He lied about being a foreigner. He lied about his accent. He tried to say that I could never atone for the pain at scale. He never talked about any of this. His father destroyed lives. So